I've had a lot of great guests on the show, and many of these guests have been advisors who have shared their incredible journeys. We've talked about their struggles and the lessons they've learned along the way to become some of the top leaders in the industry. This week on the show, I want to revisit my conversations with one of the top teams within Barnum Financial Group and the industry. You're going to hear from Ben Soccodato, Chris Kampitsis, and Anthony Maiuolo from the SKG team during this episode. I hope you find the value in their personal stories and inspiration to help you on your own financial journey. Enjoy, and thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins.
Financial planner Ben Soccodato.
I feel like the more you give in life, the more you get back, and you don't do it for that, but you could see it's just benefiting you and your team dramatically when you think about it. So stay on where you were. Like, you got there. You didn't take the time really to celebrate it the way maybe some people do. And I find that, entrepreneurs sometimes do that to themselves, and you're working through that and continuing to learn. But so you go there, and now, 5 years later, you go to 4 times what you were doing. What changed in the mindset? Like, was there a shift? Like, you got there and you said, all right, I'm here now and I want to get here? Or was it just like, all right, I'm just going to keep building. And then next thing you know, you wake up 5 years later and, you're at a whole nother level.
I think just getting your first win in anything is the toughest, right? We always, you and I talk sports quite a bit. And I feel like that milestone was a big win in my personal journey. And once that barrier was broken, the ceiling of complexity to then grow to where we are today, had a lot less friction. We've been blessed with some great opportunities. Certainly the last few years in what's transpired at the firm. We've been great benefactors of that, and happy to obviously talk more about the specific programs, which have led us here. But I remember every year I do goal setting personally, and the first question in my goal setting book is, what defines success to you? And I've done this every year since 2006. And I look back at my previous years. And I think in the 2017 version, I defined success as removing myself or my business partner, Chris, from the equation and still having the business run successfully without the top producer. And it was that mindset shift of, it's no longer, a small business, one-man show per se. I mean, this is now an enterprise.
Yeah. So how many, I'd like to dig in a little on that. And how many people are on the team in 17?
Have to look back. I think in 17, you're probably looking at 15 to 20 people in that range.
Right. And now fast forward to today.
We have 36 today.
So almost double.
Yep.
In a short period of time.
Yep. Right. And I often think, like, if I didn't show up for the next month, 6 months, a year, I mean, the clients may miss me, but they'll be well taken care of because the systems and processes have already been created where Ben could be out and the next guy is going to step in, or gal is going to step in and give the client an experience that feels very much like what they've been experiencing for the last 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah. And I think about the industry, and I think that that's such a huge point, because if you're taking a client out, let's say they invite you to a golf tournament and you're playing golf with them all day. And let's go back to 2008 and the market's going crazy. They're probably wondering, like, who's back at the office, right? Watching my money or watching my insurance or whatever it is.
Right.
And now there must be great comfort when the clients, it's almost something that they might not say, but they see. And I commend you for having that forward thought of building, as you use the word, an enterprise. And then I think it's important that people understand that you said something that was very, very, very important, was systems and processes, right? I believe that trains run on tracks. And I think you've done that. And for the audience, I think it's important that you remember back to what Ben said earlier about having great turnover, because you were growing and you probably didn't have the same systems and processes and some of the things that you've built today to build the enterprise that you build. So congratulations on that. But that's something that you all should be taking notes on if you're driving, but if you're back at your office or something, you listen to this, write that down, because that's really important.
Well, we built our whole business on the philosophy of a repeatable process. Every first appointment, whether it's myself or one of the advisors on the team, should look and feel the same. The deliverable on the next meeting should look and feel the same. The approach after that meeting should look and feel the same. That way, the internal team knows what to do in preparation for the next meeting. There's no gray area. And I believe that's what's allowed us to really scale here over the last 5 years.
Yeah, which is amazing. So back in 17 or prior, let's think about it. So is your day-to-day, Ben's day-to-day as a financial advisor / business owner / entrepreneur, is your day-to-day very different today than it was even just 5 years ago?
It is. Because of the pandemic, I think we are now in a world where Zoom has made us, very efficient. And I think back in 2017, 95, if not 100% of meetings were like in-person meetings. I mean, there's likely some phone reviews in there as well, but we're talking new business. For the most part, that was in person. Today, 100% of our business is on Zoom. And, I remember, I think it was 2019, we were at ALU, kind of watching a presenter talk through what I wanted at that time. I wanted to be able to coach my kids' sports and be around my family. And, I just knew that wasn't going to be possible while still continuing to grow the business based upon the fact that we had to, travel so much. So my day today is, jam-packed with client meetings. And then we have dedicated time on a weekly and monthly basis to work on the business with the advisor group and then, essentially the partners on the team.
It's amazing. And it sounds like, just like you said, systems and process, the structure is very disciplined, maybe not rigid, but super disciplined.
Yes.
And I think that's amazing that you have that. So yeah, let's think about that. 2005, you came in the business, single, now I fast forward back to, one of the things about being a complete person, beautiful wife, 3 children, talk about how you're balancing all that. And I think that a lot of people in our industry will think that someone went from here to here like this rocket ship, right, in a short period of time. And all they do is, work. And I know you work hard, but I feel like you've, in the last couple of years, have found somewhat of a balance in that. Now, maybe some of it happened due to, not traveling as much.
Sure.
But share the mentality around that too.
I think work-life balance in your 20s was best said by Theo Epstein. We saw him present once at one of the conferences, and he said, in your 20s and your early 30s, you just work. And I think about myself prior to having children. I came from kind of a blue collar environment. I was, I needed to earn income personally as a young person in order to support myself. So I remember in the early stages of my career, after getting home, at 8 or 9 o'clock, getting on and then studying for a couple hours, or, every Saturday dedicating the first 3 hours of my day to business. And I believe in my 20s and early 30s, by putting that work in, it's now enabled me today at 40 to now, be able to coach 70 baseball games. I think this year is what we're aiming for, and coach basketball for my kids, and do the things that are really important to me. And that wasn't always the case. And I feel blessed to now have the control of my day-to-day and my schedule, where I can fit, the extracurricular things in for my family, as well as, be there and be a good leader on the team, be very present in all instances.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think that it's interesting you use the word present. I've done so many presentations throughout my career on being present, be where your feet are. And, and that's not easy, especially when you're younger in business in general. And I think it's really important that you've done that. Congratulations on that, because that is super, super important. While we're on that, the balance, I mean, I know that, that I'm a fitness nut, and I love training and all that. And I think it helps me. I find that when I train, I start my day out, first thing in the morning with working out, everything else comes together. And I know you've went through your ups and downs with that, but
Sure.
For the most part now, it seems to become a bigger part of your life. Do you feel that that's helping you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I've always loved getting in the gym. I've always loved training, and you have to find the right balance for you. When you have late nights and early mornings, and you have little kids that are getting up in the middle of the night, it becomes very difficult to say, hey, my priority is to get to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. Yep. Thankfully, we're, out of diapers in my house. I wouldn't say every night is a perfect sleep, but, I've now found the rhythm personally where before doing anything in my day, I get my workout in. And I think I took that from you. And I've had different goals in these goal books, 4 workouts a week, 5 workouts a week. And now I'm just of the mindset that you do it every day, right? Just like you get up and you brush your teeth, and you get up and you comb your hair. Some of us, you exercise, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an hour and a half.
Yep.
Right. But if you can get 20 or 30 minutes in and get your day going, especially when it feels hard, I think that's where you can have breakthroughs in your fitness as well. And that helps you.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is a key thing. I think that's when you have to push through when it's the hardest, and it's a sense of discipline that you achieve for yourself, and that carries into the rest of your things though. So, I think that's great.
Financial planner Chris Kampitsis.
If I'm sitting here listening and I'm new to this business, or I'm in this business and I'm kind of stuck like you were 5 years into the business, you talked about your 3 things, but when we talk about the success formula, like, how do you get in front of so many clients, and how did you do that, 5 years ago? And what has that led to today in terms of that? Because someone's sitting there saying, holy mackerel, I want to be at the top 0.5%, 0.25% of the industry. I want to have this huge team, but it's the chicken and the egg in this business.
Yeah. So you have to have a marketing game plan. One thing about Barnum that I believe is a huge differentiator versus the industry is you can come here and really execute on a marketing game plan. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. They have lots of great programs that they're tapped into through their corporate relationships that allow you to get in front of people on a favorable basis and almost immediately make a positive impact in their lives. And that's amazing. So you need a marketing game plan one way or another. You need to have your target markets. You need to figure out who you serve best and who you enjoy serving the most. And then you have to have accountability. You have to have accountability to yourself that you're going to do the daily blocking and tackling necessary to grow. The biggest thing for me was focusing on growth. And that's investing too. It's the magic of compounding interest. It didn't matter to me where I started, as long as each quarter and each year I was growing by a reasonable double-digit percentage. You do the math on a financial calculator, 10 years later, you're going to be somewhere pretty special, regardless of the number that you start with.
Yeah, but Chris, I want to give you some credit. You have to be special to understand that journey, right? Like a lot of people are so quick to say, I need this or I need that today. But when you start compounding it, you're right. And I give you a lot of credit that you saw the forest through the trees.
I think regardless of industry, regardless of career, the saddest thing, and we all know people like this, I think the worst thing is people who give up a moment too soon.
Yep.
And you'll never know for sure who that is because they gave up. But if you can dig deep, if you can find that intestinal fortitude to really just plow through and also self-examine, what am I doing wrong? What can I improve upon? What did I contribute to putting me in this current situation? Self-awareness and emotional intelligence are so underrated in our industry and in life and in business in general. There's so many people who think they never do anything wrong. And, it's just, even the best of us make so many mistakes. We just want to fall forward.
Yeah. But self-aware, you talked about that earlier. And I think that I'm glad you went back to that because that is so critical to the success.
Financial planner, Anthony Maiuolo.
So walk us, I want to get a visual of what a day in the life of you is like today in terms of like, how many clients are you seeing? What is your day like now as an advisor?
Mainly the first thing I do when I get in is I keep my early mornings pretty clear. I'm a man of repetition and a man of consistency. And Paul, you mentioned in one of our meetings, I don't know if it was a kickoff meeting or a mid-year meeting, there's no negotiation. I have no negotiation with myself. I don't care how bad of a day I had the night before or bad of a day I had, the earlier days or anything. I'm dialing the phone. The first time, and people think I'm crazy because I've done a fairly successful run in this business, but I still enjoy the fact of dialing out, reaching out to new prospects and speaking to them. And it's kind of what's driven me my entire career. So, and I think I'll do that at 70 years old, quite frankly.
And it's still better than digging ditches, right?
Still better than digging ditches or plowing snow with my old man, right? Who am I not to work the opportunity that's given to me? I know there's people around the world that would probably chop off a limb to be in the position that I'm in. So I never want to let that opportunity go away from me. I always want to remember that there's someone always willing to take my spot, and I have to kind of stay on top. I'm very Kobe Bryant and very Michael Jordan oriented. I follow a lot of their kind of Last Dance is one of my favorite documentaries I've ever seen. So my typical day is, as crazy as it sounds, first couple hours, hour or two, I'll be dialing the phone. And Ben and Chris sometimes walk in like you're out of your mind, but it's just something I love to do.
Great. And how many calls do you usually make out in, say, those hour and a half, 2 hours? Is it 20 calls you make, or?
On a weekly basis, it's generally around, I would say, 200 dials.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for all of you that are not sitting down or driving, if you're driving, like go back and listen to this part of the episode. You know, here's a guy that's in the business for 18 years, extremely successful in the top, 0.5% of the industry now with the way you are in your business today, 10x your business since you've been here. And you're still making 200 dials a week.
Financial planner Chris Kampitsis.
When I think about your journey, you're 15 years in now, but going backwards, was there a turning point in your career? And was there one thing that happened? Was it three things? Like, what was that turning point where you said, like I talk about all the time, in anything you're doing, could be sports, it could be business, where at some point it clicks and you say, holy mackerel, I get this. I know what I have to do. So you're on this journey. What was there a turning point?
I think there were a few turning points. Yeah. So probably three come to mind.
Okay.
The first was meeting Ben. And, our New York office was small. We were just getting started, and I was really looking for a mentor that I could work with on a regular basis. And Ben grew up in New Rochelle, and he was, commuting up to Shelton at the time. And so he would start to use the New York office more and more. And, introducing myself to him, getting to know him, and then taking him out to visit a future client together, and then being able to learn from him was a very big deal for me.
Yeah. And Ben Soccodato was basically in the business at that point, probably about 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So he wasn't like 20-year veteran, but he was someone that was performing at a high level, and you were attracted to that. And he was willing to give you the time, not just to do joint work, but he was truly filling that space as a mentor, which is really awesome.
Absolutely. And I asked myself, hey, if I didn't meet him and I didn't make the step to ask for help and to introduce myself, because that's not easy to do.
Sure.
Would I still be in the business? I think I would have figured it out one way or another, but it dramatically accelerated my evolution, and I'm profoundly grateful.
Great. So awesome. That's number one.
So that's
number
one.
two.
Number two would be, and it wasn't so much so at the time, but you shared a story with me about one time that I made an appointment. I hadn't been very successful to that point. I grabbed time on your calendar. I came to your office and I shared my business plan, my vision of where I think I could take my practice.
Yep.
And that kind of goes back to that self-reflection I talked about earlier, where one of the things I self-reflected on and that I had done wrong over my life to that point was that I hadn't shared and vocalized what my goals were with people.
Yep.
Because you're so afraid if, number one, you think people don't care. Number two, you're afraid once you put it out there, if you don't achieve it, you're a failure. So asking for help and letting people know this is what I want and what will it take for me to achieve it repeatedly is an incredible necessary ingredient in success.
Yeah. And I it's amazing, Chris. That's such a great tip that you're giving to everyone. I mean, if you're driving, write that down, guys. Like, I think you should share from the rooftops, and it also gives you an additional layer. Besides the help, it gives you an additional layer of accountability. And now you have an army of people that are on your team, but you don't want to let those people down that you care about so much too. So love that, Chris.
We were together a couple weeks ago, and your wife shared a story where you were at a company meeting and you turned over to her and you said, we're going to be the number one firm in the country one day. And she goes, but Paul, you don't even have a firm yet. Right?
True story.
So, I mean, that's just another example of that. Not being afraid to put it out there, what your goals are. And ultimately, if you put it out there in the universe, it will come back to you with hard work.
Yeah. And it took 10 years though, but it was 10 years of staying on that journey and not ever forgetting that conversation. So again, what's number three?
Number 3 was the first client who really took a chance on me. Not literally my first client, but the first sort of high net worth client with a complex situation, really in-depth financial planning. This person ran and runs a hedge fund, so knows his way around investments, certainly. And he was going through a change in his life through a divorce. And that was something that I could identify with because I had experienced that with my parents growing up. And he was really trying to prepare for his life and that of his future exes post-divorce. And if you know anyone who's going through this, you know it kind of also puts a financial pause until you get through some of the emotional and legal hurdles. You can't really make a lot of adjustments. It's very, very difficult. So it was important for me to be patient, to, be in touch, to provide value. And then ultimately, he placed his trust in me and executing on the recommendations that I laid out for him, which have been very, very successful. He's still a client all these years later, been working together now for about 13 years. And if he didn't give me that opportunity, I don't know that I would have had the confidence that came from that to have those conversations with people in his financial position and be able to say to them, this is what you need to do. And in a way, obviously, that is respectful and friendly. But sometimes as a financial planner, you have to have tough conversations with your clients, especially when it's something that is so clearly in their best interest.
I love it. I mean, and it's amazing that you have these 3 situations, and I'm sure there's many more, but those 3 have been so critical to your success.
Financial planner Anthony Maiuolo.
As I stay on the theme of, turning points, you make this switch. So now you're going from a transactional advisor to, and really working on one side of the balance sheet, really on the money side. Then you go now and you're going to try to make this switch to a transition to a financial planner, helping people with all of their balance sheet. How was that mentally for you?
So you question yourself a lot, right? Because there's so much you don't know. When you bought a stock, it was buy it low, sell it high, and that's kind of how it worked. Coming here, I kid you not, I did not have the understanding of all the financial pieces that go into a real financial plan. Wasn't even sure how life insurance worked when I first came here. Wasn't sure the difference between Roth and pre-tax IRA. And we laugh and tell the story when I first came here. Chris and I sitting down in I think it was a diner, and he's basically explaining everything, how it works to me. And my advice to any young person is be a sponge in what you're doing in this industry. Anything that's being said to you or around you, be aware of, because that's going to give you leverage and become a student of the game. And to me, I just wanted to learn more and more because I knew I had the work ethic behind me, and I just wanted to drive and get to as much knowledge as I could so that I could move my path along faster than the average bird.
Financial planner Ben Soccodato.
You said something earlier, though, that I want to dig in on. Many people in business, they hit what you said. You used the word, the ceiling of complexity, right? Now you've broke through that. But if I'm sitting here listening to this and I'm someone that's at that ceiling right now, or the perceived ceiling, right? Because sometimes it's just your mental thought of where it is. What would you do if you were them? Give them some advice.
I think the best advice is to take that step back and write down what your biggest challenges are, right? And if you can think through what's occupying your mental space, what's occupying your personal time that isn't allowing you to get to your goals, and then come up with a plan as to how to address that, whether that be hiring somebody, maybe it's not taking on a certain type of client, maybe it's selling a portion of your book that's going to enable you to get to the next level. I think everybody's different, but we get so caught in the day-to-day of our business. We need to be able to have outlets to take a step back and think about how things are going and assess, what the next steps are to get to the next level.
Great advice. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.